I have a problem. Well, actually, I have two. And they've both been bothering me for a while, and they are sort of connected. For one thing, if you're a gamer on YouTube, the chances are high that you've seen a lot of videos on what they call the backlog. You know, video games that you either should have played or that you've just got sitting in your library on your console, but you haven't played yet. There are so many of these videos, and most of them share the same sort of mindset. They all focus on how to crush your backlog, how to defeat it, how to finally get rid of it, as if it was the enemy or some sort of mental burden. And sure, there is even psychology backing parts of that up, at least that latter part. But in general, I want to take a more positive approach to the whole thing. I'm certainly not trying to argue against the concept of a backlog itself, or I wouldn't be making this video. I have one. And that kind of leads on to my second problem, because another exceedingly popular genre on YouTube when it comes to gaming is top lists. Whether they call themselves 50 games you need to play before you die, or my top 100 personal favorites of all time, I often watch this kind of video and think to myself, I haven't even played half of these, so can I really judge whether they belong there? And that's when it hit me. I could take these two problems and sort of mold them together into one simple solution. I am lucky enough to be a Twitch streamer, but since even I grew tired of replaying classic Tomb Raider for what feels like the billionth time, I decided to mix it up a bit and do something a little bit different. I turned my backlog into a timeline, and I wrote a list of over 350 games, and counting, sorted by release date. Every single minute I play for that list happens live on Twitch, so if you don't want to miss any game, head over there and give that a follow. But most importantly, there's going to be no war, no crushing, no defeating, no pressure, no time limits. Just playing games in order and enjoying the process and turning that process into content. Before I start playing anything, I needed rules. Not to turn this into a chore, but to give it structure. Now, first things first, what am I even going to play? What goes on the list? The short answer is it's subjective. Unapologetically so. I'm not trying to build the definitive list of important video games. I'm building my timeline, based on games I consider important, games I've heard about for years, games that keep showing up on these top lists, or just titles that I feel are culturally relevant in hindsight, and of course games that I've previously played in my childhood and I want to revisit because it's been years. But that also means the list will never really be finished. I'm keeping an eye on new releases and trailers, and when something feels like it belongs on that timeline, it gets at it, always based on its release date. As far as game series are concerned, I follow a simple rule. If I put a game from a series on the list, I either include all main entries, or I start with the first one and only add the sequels if I actually like it. And yes, I am allowing myself to stop playing a game if it doesn't click. There is no minimum playtime, but I do give every game a fair chance. This isn't about forcing myself through things I don't enjoy. It's about learning why something works for me, or why it doesn't. As for the order, I play games strictly by release date. The earliest release I can reasonably verify decides the position on the timeline. That way, there's no chance for analysis paralysis to stop me from playing anything at all. Whichever is next in the order, that is what I'm playing. I also take suggestions from the community, not as demands but as recommendations. If a game fits the idea of the timeline, it gets at it, again, according to its release date. And of course, also, every single minute I play for this project happens live on Twitch. There is no grinding of camera, no secret shortcuts. Just 100% on Twitch. And once I'm done with the game, whether I finish it or drop it, I rate it. The score is out of 100 points across 10 categories, with up to 10 points for each category. And those categories are: did I have fun with the game? How good is the gameplay? How good is the story? Do the graphics still hold up today, or at least how good were they back in the day? Same for the sound design, for the replay value. How well are the levels designed, or the worlds in case of an open world title? Does it run well? Does it run stable? Are there any game-breaking bugs, soft locks? That counts as stability. History. Is it historically significant? Did it start a major franchise? Did it set a record at the Game Awards? Things like that. And of course, customizability, meaning how well can I adjust the experience to myself and my hardware. Keep in mind, none of these scores are meant to be objective truths. They are snapshots reflecting how the game feels to me at this point in time in this context of playing everything in order. The project officially began on September 8th, 2024. Since then, I've played and rated 15 of the oldest and most recognizable video games. But my real start wasn't even a video game. I've hinted at my obsession with Tomb Raider before, and connoisseurs will know that Tomb Raider 4 has a passage featuring a game within the game. Lara, as she often does, enters an ancient temple and challenges its patron Samarkand to a duel. What are they playing? Only the oldest documented game ever, Senet, which dates back to 3000 BC. Variations of it are played across the world to this day. And the same is true for Go and chess, which were the next on the list before we finally dove into the digital world and made our way west. The Oregon Trail was not the first video game ever produced, or released for that matter, but due to its widespread use in schools, it was the first popular one. Set in the Manifest Destiny era, you control a party of 4 on your way westward to Oregon along the namesake route. Gameplay mainly consists of text-based decisions about your route, supplies, trading, and a hunting minigame. Pong may be extremely simple by modern standards, but it's impossible to ignore its impact. I genuinely had fun with it in short bursts, and while the gameplay is basic, it remains surprisingly engaging even decades later. There is no story to speak of, and very little in the way of presentation, but its technical stability is flawless and its historical significance is enormous. Pong doesn't offer much depth or customization, yet as a foundational piece of video game history, it earned its place on the timeline, not because of what it is today, but because of what it started. Zork is a fascinating and often charming piece of early interactive fiction, and for a while I really enjoy exploring its world through its text-based systems. The core gameplay and puzzle design are clever in theory, but in practice many solutions feel frustratingly obtuse by modern standards. After about 3 hours, that friction ultimately outweighed my enjoyment, leading me to stop playing. While its presentation is minimal, it's literally just text, and its customization options are extremely limited, Zork's historical importance is undeniable. It remains an important entry on the timeline, more interesting to study than to actually play today. Space Invaders still holds up remarkably well as a pure arcade experience. I had a lot of fun with it, and its simple but tense gameplay loop remains engaging thanks to the steadily increasing pressure as the screen fills up. Again, there's virtually no story and only minimal audio-visual flair, but the sound design does a great job of reinforcing that sense of urgency. Thanks to many ports and modernizations, you can still play stable versions of it today and have fun trying to beat your high score. Space Invaders earns its place on the timeline as a game that's easy to understand, hard to master, and foundational to everything that followed. Pac-Man is an all-time arcade classic that still feels immediately fun to play. I had a great time with it, and while the core mechanics are simple, they are elevated by smart enemy behavior and a strong sense of rhythm and flow. There's no real story and only modest visual complexity, but the sound design remains iconic and instantly recognizable. Pac-Man was one of the games which put video games on the map in the 80s, and it's easy to see why. It's a game whose elegance and influence have endured for decades. Donkey Kong is a solid and historically important arcade game that still offers moments of genuine fun. I enjoyed its straightforward platforming and escalating challenge, even if the controls and mechanics feel a bit stiff by today's standards. The presentation is very minimal, it's pixel art, and the sound design doesn't leave much of an impression, but it earns its spot on the timeline through its massive historical significance, by introducing ideas and characters such as Mario that would go on to define an entire genre, even if the game itself hasn't aged quite as gracefully as some of its peers. Tetris is one of those rare games that feels almost timeless. I had an incredible amount of fun with it, and its core gameplay loop is as elegant and compelling today as it ever was. There is no story and only very simple visuals, but the theme tune is iconic and instantly recognizable and perfectly complements the experience. With outstanding replay value, excellent technical stability and immense historical significance, Tetris earns its place in video game history as a near perfect example of how simple mechanics can create endlessly engaging gameplay. Super Mario Bros. Still feels like a defining moment in video game history, and it's easy to see why. I had a great time with it, thanks to responsive controls, excellent level design, and a gameplay loop that remains fun and readable even decades later. The presentation and sound design are iconic, the replay value is high, and its technical stability is rock solid. With enormous historical significance and a score overall of 73, it currently stands as the highest rated game on my list, a benchmark for everything that follows on the timeline. Right after Mario, I played the original Legend of Zelda, which ended up being the biggest surprise on the list so far, and not in a positive way. I struggled to find consistent enjoyment in it, with especially combat feeling very unrewarding. While the game deserves credit for establishing the Zelda universe and being technically sound, its lack of replay value and the friction of its design ultimately dragged the experience down for me. With a total score of 38, it currently sits at the very bottom of my list, highlighting just how differently some foundational games can age, depending on how you approach them today. Metal Gear is an interesting blend of innovation and early design quirks. I had a solid amount of fun navigating its stealth-focused gameplay, and the mechanics were surprisingly deep for the era, though sometimes clunky by modern standards. The story and sound design are decent, and while the graphics are simple, they serve the game well. It has a solid amount of replay value, not least due to the different difficulty settings the Master Collection version offers. With its inventive approach to stealth gameplay, Metal Gear has achieved historical significance, even if it doesn't quite reach the heights of some of the other classics I've played so far. Final Fantasy I is a classic that laid the groundwork for a franchise that would define the RPG genre. I enjoyed the gameplay and story for what they are, though the graphics and sound feel very dated by today's standards. Countless possible party combinations offer loads of replay value. Its historical significance is undeniable, and while it may not be as immediately thrilling as some other titles, it earns a rightful place on the timeline for pioneering mechanics, turn-based combat, and world-building that would influence countless games to come. The DOS-era Microsoft flight simulators were an impressive technical achievement for their time, offering a surprisingly deep and realistic flight experience, and also pioneering 3D graphics in video games. I found the gameplay engaging, though it can be slow and unforgiving for newcomers, and the graphics are extremely limited by today's standards. The sound design is basic but functional, and replay value is strong if you enjoy simulation. It earns its spot on the timeline as a landmark in simulation gaming, A game more about experience and learning than immediate fun. Final Fantasy II builds on its predecessor with more refined mechanics and a deeper story. I had a good time exploring its world and experimenting with its unique leveling system, though some aspects still feel clunky by modern standards. The graphics and sound are modest but serviceable, and replay value is as solid as it was with the first game. FF2 evolved the franchise as an early RPG that pushed narrative and mechanics forward. SimCity is a pioneering simulation that lets you build and manage your own city from the ground up. I enjoyed the challenge of balancing growth, resources, and disasters, though the gameplay can feel abstract and the visuals are very basic. Sound design is minimal and some aspects of replayability are limited, unless you enjoy experimenting with different city layouts. It earned its place on the list due to its historical significance as one of the very first true city building simulations. And finally, at the end of 2025, I played the original Prince of Persia, a remarkably polished platformer for its time. I had a lot of fun with its precise if somewhat laggy controls, fluid animations and clever level design, even if the story is basic and the graphics feel dated by today's standards. Sound design is solid, and the replay value is high thanks to the challenge of a time limit. Its historical significance is clear, pioneering cinematic platforming that influenced countless games after it. With a total score of 68, Prince of Persia earns a well-deserved spot on the timeline as both a fun and technically impressive classic. And there you have it. Those were the 15 games I've already played from my backlog, from my timeline. But the project continues. We just started Final Fantasy III over on Twitch the other day, so if you want to see the progress in real time, feel free to head on over there, give that channel a follow, ideally, and join my streams. I'd be more than happy to have you there. But I will also be uploading the VODs here on YouTube as well. Twitch has been sadly limiting highlights to 100 hours in total, and I'm very close to hitting that mark. But I will also be making detailed review videos for every game, where I go over those 10 categories more closely and explain in a little bit more detail why I gave it that score. So if you felt like these 30 to 40 second clips you've just seen were a bit too brief and a bit too rough, I got you covered. Just stay tuned and make sure to subscribe and like this video so you don't miss any future updates. And ideally, leave a comment where you tell me which game you're most excited for me to play and review, which is your favorite game, or having a look at the list, maybe which game am I even still missing? What would you consider essential gaming for someone who's taking on a project like mine? So, to close off, all I really want to say is thank you very much for watching. I hope you do enjoy the journey. And ideally, I will see you over on Twitch or in the future videos here on YouTube. And at the very latest, next year, when I do another one of those roundups and let you see how that progress has been going, how that project's coming along, and what are my favorite games of 2026. Until then, have a good one, enjoy gaming, and bye-bye.